My name is Michael Moresco. I'm the town administrator of the town of Marshfield. I'm sure you're familiar with IT snafus. We had a small IT snafu, so with the Zoom, we're getting it all situated. While we're doing that, I wanted to welcome everyone to this public meeting, Marshfield and Duxbury residents. Well, a special welcome to all the Duxbury residents also that are here. I think it's important that we talk about, tonight we're going to be talking about beach nourishment and the importance of it. Both Marshfield and Duxbury are doing a project very close to one another. As you know, on Bay Avenue, Marshfield runs right into Duxbury. It is our hope that we'll be able to work cooperatively with the town of Duxbury. We do our beach nourishments so that we're both starting beside one another and then working out. It would be the most efficient way to get the sand out there on the beaches. So we're going to hear very shortly. I'm going to introduce Chris Ryan, who's the Duxbury planner, to say a few words, and then Leslie Field from Woods Hole gets into the real nuts and bolts of why everyone's here. So thank you, and thank you for your patience. This time I'd like to invite up Chris Ryan to say a few words.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for coming. We are very pleased to be able to have this public meeting, which is a part of our work with Woods Hole. It's really designed to give you information about the project, a little bit of the history of the project, what the purpose and rationale for the project is, and allow you to answer or ask any questions you want us to answer in terms of anything that you're interested in, have any concerns about. Just a little bit about what we have as additional resources for you. We have a web page up, as I'm sure that Marshfield does as well. And if you go to our planning department website, which I have some business cards, and there is a QR code on the back, and you can just shoot that, go to the website, and there's a list of tabs over to the left. If you go down to resiliency, click on that, it opens up a little bit of a larger menu. And this project, Marshfield and Duxbury, is one of the three options under resilience. So hope you get a chance to take a look at a lot of the previous presentations that have taken place. There's some reports and studies. And so hopefully that will answer maybe some other questions you might have, but it'll also give you some ideas of the design, the project, and why certain options were selected. So again, welcome. Thanks for being here. And I'll turn it over to Leslie.
All right, thank you. Is this working? Well, maybe I don't need this.
I don't think it is.
Okay. My name is Leslie Field.
Please mute yourself.
I'm with the Woods Hole Group. I do apologize that we're starting a little bit late because we did have some IT problems. I am going to say, for those people who are dialing in via Zoom, if you can please mute yourselves, that would be really helpful for us here on this end. I'm also going to say to the people who are calling in on Zoom, if you have questions, type them into the chat, and at the end of the presentation, we'll go and look at those questions and we'll answer them one by one, once we're done with the presentation. So, my name is Leslie Fields. I hadn't said that before. I'm with the Woods Hole Group. We have been working with the towns of Marshfield. Oh, wait, one thing. I want to introduce Greg Guimond, town planner from Marshfield, and Rebecca Haney, Coastal Zone Management. Coastal Zone Management has been funding this project for the last 3 years. So so we couldn't do it without all these terrific town people at CCM. They've really put a lot of effort and energy into this project, and largely responsible for its success. So thank you all for your help. So we've been working with the towns of Marshfield and Duxbury for the last 3 years on this project. It's a project to build resiliency, shoreline resiliency in the towns of Marshfield and Duxbury using beach nourishment and dune nourishment. So I'm going to go through a few slides just to sort of show you what the project is about, give a little bit of background and history, and tell you what to expect when we get into construction of the project. And then you can ask questions after that. Okay, meeting agenda. We've already done introductory remarks. I have a couple slides on background and goals of the project. I'm going to go into the designs that we came up for the beach and dune nourishment. I'm going to update you on the status of the environmental permitting and talk about the schedule for next steps, and then, like I said, we can then open it up to questions and answers. So the goal of this project overall is to enhance the resiliency of critically eroded beaches in the towns of Marshfield and Duxbury. And why are we doing that? To protect public and private properties from storm damage, to protect the existing seawalls and revetments, and you can see in a couple of these pictures, the upper left and the lower right one, that the structures are in many places, in bad shape. So this nourishment will, if those walls aren't protected or aren't repaired, this nourishment will help to protect them and prevent further damage or minimize further damage. It's also being done to minimize wave overtopping. So when you have big storms and the water level is high, the waves hit the seawall, those waves overtop, it's going to minimize that, and it's also just going to minimize flooding in and of itself, just still water flooding. And also, obviously, to restore the recreational beach and to restore the coastal ecosystem. So those are the reasons why we're doing it, the goals of the project. I wanted to get a little bit into just why the beaches in Marshfield and Duxbury are so critically eroded. And in part, it has to do with the fact that the shorelines have extensive armoring or seawalls along the coastline. In one way, you can think of it, the seawalls, they provide a benefit, that the last line of defense for coastal erosion. So if you're behind that seawall, and the beach erodes to the seawall, you're not going to have any more erosion of the beach because it hit the seawall. But it also has a disadvantage. They also have a disadvantage in that by those structures being there, they adversely or negatively impact the beach. So I'm going to walk you through some of these graphics. The two on the left are a natural beach without a seawall or a revetment. And you can see that on the top, you've got a beach width there that's basically the beach you'd go out and sit on or something like that in the summer. And as storms hit that beach and as sea levels rise, because the beach is natural and there's nothing on the landward side of it, it can migrate landward because of those, in response to those storms or in response to sea level rise. And it can maintain the beach width that you see there. Over on the right, the two figures, they have a seawall or a shore protection structure in them. And you can see that initially, once the seawall is built or right after it's built, you've got a nice wide beach there. But over time, in response to storms and sea level rise, that beach width decreases and the beach lowers in elevation. And that's because when wave energy hits those seawalls, there's increased scour in front of the seawalls that lowers the beach elevation. And those seawalls that are there, they prevent any new sources of sediment being supplied to the beach. So there's no new sources of sediment that can build the beach back up after storms. So that's just a little bit of coastal engineering 101, impacts of shore protection structures on the beaches. So what we have here in the towns of Marshfield and Duxbury, because we have all these seawalls, we've got and the beach is migrated essentially back, in many cases, to the face of the seawall, the high water line is. We've got lower beach elevations, which allows deeper water during storms, right? If you've got deeper water in storms, you've got bigger waves that it can impact the seawalls. So the height of the wave is directly proportional to the depth of the water. The deeper the water, the higher the waves. You get bigger waves, you've got more overtopping during storms, more overtopping, you've got increased damage to the properties behind. And there's just some pictures of that here. And we know from looking at the shorelines in both towns, Marshfield has 83% of its coastline that's armored, and Duxbury has 91%. So that's the part that's everything north of Duxbury Beach Reservation, but for, let's say, 5 or 6 properties in the middle of that area we call the Horseshoe area. It's not armored. So just accomplishments to date. So like I said, we've been working with the towns and CZM on this project for about 3 years. We got a grant back in FY20 for about $234,000. The focus of that grant was to identify beaches in both towns that would be feasible for us to implement beach nourishment or dune restoration.
Do we see the screen? And you can see the screen from Zoom.
Great.
You can just shift the
If you would shift it, because Mike DeMayo just called me, said he can't see the screen either. Can we angle
The
that
other way,
here?
the other way.
Getting right?
You're not sure?
Operating on the last. Should have been, no, it was on shared screen.
Sure. If you share the screen, then they can see everything that we
Now we
see.
see you. Now we see the floor.
Oh, so you guys are seeing this screen?
Right.
Oh, my.
That-
Okay.
That's right. You're gonna lose your photo.
Is that better, people on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for that.
There's 20 people on Zoom.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
Thanks for mentioning it.
Yes. Okay.
Have a nice weather though.
Okay. All right, so in that first year, FY20, we identified beaches that were suitable for nourishment. The graphic on the left shows the areas that we identified that were suitable for beach and dune nourishment. So in the town of Marshfield, it was 4 sites. Wrexham Beach to the north, Winslow Ave Beach, Fieldston and Sunrise as one big project, and then the Bay Ave area. And then that connected with the one beach in Duxbury we identified, which was the Gurnett Road Beach. DBR, Duxbury Beach Reservation, further to the south, is also doing beach nourishment. So in essence, that Duxbury part is sort of one big, long, contiguous area that hopefully one day will be nourished. So when we identified those beaches, we developed engineering designs for the beach nourishment and for the dune nourishment in FY20. Then in FY21, we got another grant and we filed all the permit applications to allow the beach and dune nourishment. And this year, in FY22, we got another grant for about $94,000. And so we're responding to agency comments as the permits are out there being reviewed. Sometimes they have to call back and ask for clarification. So we're responding to agency questions and following up to ensure that the permits are issued. Also, for each one of these 3 grant applications, we also had public outreach just like this. So there were numerous opportunities for public outreach, public comment. Chris mentioned the information on the website. We developed a lot of that and got that out to the public. So that was a big component of all of these grants. One thing I will say though, so moving forward from here, we're going to talk a little bit about what the towns plan to do next year, so in FY23. And one of the things that both towns have done is they've prioritized this Bay Ave area and Gurnett Road Beach as a place where they would like to, that'd be the first place they'd like to implement beach nourishment. So I'm going to talk about the designs for all the sites, but at the end I'm going to focus more on this Bay Ave and Gurnett Road Beach area. Okay, this is the Wrexham Public Beach up to the north in Marshfield. Hopefully you guys out there on Zoom can see this, but there's a sort of a yellow area that shows the footprint for the beach nourishment that we designed. It's about 8.2 acres. Takes about 870 cubic yards of fine to medium grain sand with some gravel. And so this photo on the bottom right shows sort of some of the typical sediment that we would be nourishing with. It's a mixture, like I said, of medium grain sand with some coarser material. It covers about 1,650 linear feet, all within the town of Marshfield. And there's benefits here for storm damage protection, recreation, obviously, because it's a public beach, and then also shorebird habitat. Construction access for the Wrexham Public Beach would be shown in it's the red arrow in the figure to the left, so it comes from the south end of the beach there. So down that road and right out to the beach. Hey, you guys on Zoom, you want to mute yourselves? I can hear you calling your dogs. Okay, next one is Winslow Ave Beach. So this is from Porter Street to Wrexham Road. That's 4.5 acres. It calls for 17,850 cubic yards.
See the screen.
Again? What changed?
Can they see you?
Can you see me at all?
I can see you, but this is the way we cannot see the screen. The only thing we see is the vertical up the right-hand corner.
How about that?
That's much better. We still can't see.
You got to angle the laptop there.
Okay, hang on.
I'm gonna have to unplug it. In order to do that.
Okay.
You're gonna lose the Zoom connection.
Just
Battery
turn
should do
left
it.
on that way. It's the camera.
Well, I'm just afraid it's gonna rip it off the table. How about that?
Yes, yes, getting much better.
Okay, which direction do I have to go? Keep going?
Yes, yes, good.
Down?
Go leave it, right? Yeah.
Okay, how we doing?
Bradford yourself, Bradford yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Is this better? Wants me or wants? Can you guys see the screen? Perfect. Okay, someone says perfect.
Okay.
Okay. All right, continuing. So this is the Winslow Ave design. It covers 1,540 linear feet of beach. It's all town of Marshfield property. It can provide benefits for storm damage protection. It is a coarser sediment, so it's mainly cobble and gravel, just like you see in this photograph right here. And it's a dune. It's not on the beach. It's more cobble and gravel that goes in the dune. So it's further back.
Sorry to interrupt,
Okay.
but someone needs to mute their TVs back.
Carol Bradford, please.
Everybody mute, please.
Okay, just a minute, people on Zoom.
The host should be able to mute all, if that's helpful.
He's going to try.
All right, thanks, Leslie.
At least we weren't Zoom.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Nice job, Greg. All right, now we can't tell if we're lined up right because we can't get them.
That's probably a good idea.
I hope they can see this now.
Share screen. Yeah, just to make sure.
Yeah, but you can't, after we get it right, you can't move it.
All right, leave it.
Okay.
Just turn it slightly.
I can hear them
There
again.
you go, perfect.
Oh, okay, great.
That's right.
Zoom, please, the chat, if you have a question.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're done with Winslow Ave Beach. Next one is, we don't have Fieldton and Sunrise in here, and here's the reason. Is that when we went to file for the permits, by the time we were ready to file for the permits, we had not received all of the access easements from the Fieldton and Sunrise property owners. And so we could not file those applications for that beach because those homeowners did not sign the access easement.
How many of the?
It's about half.
How many have to sign?
It's about 70 or 80.
Okay. You do realize that most of those are rentals, and the owners are not there? Some of the owners.
We
they are only
realize
there
that
from-
there's rentals, we've sent it out by mail, we've tried repeatedly to contact people.
Mhm.
We've had neighbors walking up and down the street, asking neighbors to sign to get the information back. We spent almost 2 years on that.
Great. So that means you can't go forward with that?
You can't go forward with that
Currently,
part
it is
right
not
now.
in the permitting process.
Right, doesn't mean it can't be permitted sometime in the future, but right now, it's not permitted. All right, so that's why Fieldton and Sunrise isn't in here. I'm jumping now to Bay Ave and Burnett Road. This is the area where the towns have decided they want to focus their efforts in the next phase, which will be for construction. Okay, so what you see here is a graphic of the entire footprint, both in the town of Marshfield and in the town of Duxbury. It stretches from north of Pearl Street in Marshfield to the end of Ocean Road South in Duxbury. It's 38.1 acres. It's a very large regional beach nourishment project. It would take about 480,000 cubic yards of material. About 84 or 85,000 of that is in Marshfield, and 395,000 is in Duxbury. Those are volumes, so cubic yards. The whole project is 5,090 linear feet, 900 feet in Marshfield, and 4,120 feet in Duxbury. In terms of the number of properties, there's 16 properties in Marshfield and 66 properties in Duxbury. All of those homeowners have signed access easements which allow the public to pass on any beaches that are nourished using dredged material funded with public dollars.
Leslie, we're currently missing one.
You're missing one.
One. And the reason for that is specifically because the property is owned by an LLC, and the lawyers are giving it the once over many, many times.
So that must have been one that transferred and was sold since we
Correct.
filed the permits.
That's
Okay,
correct.
so we'll have to work on that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. This particular nourishment project provides a lot of benefits. So it's benefits for storm damage protection, reduced wave overtopping, as I talked about, recreation, and for shorebird habitat. The construction access is shown in the red lines on the left-hand graphic. Basically, at the north end, we get onto the beach by the Bay Ave ramp. So you come down that ramp, there'd be a stockpile of material there at the bottom of the ramp, and then it would be trucked down the beach and spread using front-end loaders. When we're working at the south end of the project, we'd have to come through DVR property, get some sort of access agreement from DVR. We've been in contact with them. And so, you know, when we need this access point, we're going to have to initiate that agreement with them. But I don't see a problem with that because they're in favor of this activity. This is a cross-section of the Bay Ave and Burnett Road design. So if you're looking at this top graphic, the black line is the profile of the existing beach. So it's elevation on the vertical axis and distance on the bottom axis. At the top of that black line is the top of the seawall. Okay, this happens to be in Marshfield. So you can see how eroded the beach is right in front of the seawall, because it drops straight off. The yellow line on top is the design beach nourishment profile. And so it has what we call a berm at the top. It's that flat area at the top. It's 90 feet wide at an elevation of 11 feet, NABD 88. At the end of that 90-foot berm, then it tapers down very gradually, 15 horizontal to 1 vertical, until it hits the existing sea floor. There's another example of the type of sediment that's proposed here. So it's mainly medium sand with some gravel in it. So that's what we have to nourish it with material that's compatible with what's on the beach right now. So that's what it's going to look like when we're done. It's not going to be fine, beautiful, pristine, white Florida sand. It's going to be a lot like what's on the beach right now. And that's a requirement from the permitting agencies, and it's also what will make the beach last longer. If we put a bunch of beautiful, fine, white Florida sand on this beach, it's just going to wash away really quickly. So we have to nourish it with what's similar to what's out there right now.
Is the green dash line mean high water?
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah, the green dash line is mean high water, yeah. Should we take a question? Yeah, we can take a question now, yeah.
I just noticed you have alternate 3 there, and you're showing, obviously you've been through other alternates.
Yeah.
How do you actually determine that new profile and select alternate 3 versus the others?
So, yeah, so we had three designs. It's a good question. We had 3 designs for this area. We picked alternate 3 just based on level of protection provided, cost, impacts to natural resources. So there was a matrix, a bunch of selection criteria, and that's how we ended up narrowing in on alternate 3. Okay. So this is a slide that just updates on the permitting status. So we filed permits, suite of permits for the town of Marshfield, and a suite of permits for the town of Duxbury. And we filed them with these 4 agencies, so the local conservation commissions, the Mass Department of Environmental Protection Waterways Division, Massachusetts Coastal Zone Management, and the Army Corps of Engineers. We have all received all permits except for the 2 Corps of Engineers permits, and we do expect that they'll be issued this spring. All right, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide here. So in terms of, thinking, yes?
I heard you say dredge material, but then you're talking about gravel and sand. Did you say dredge material?
The nourishment projects have been permitted to receive sand from either upland or dredge sources.
Okay.
Okay, but we don't have a dredge source available right now. So if we're moving forward with construction this winter, it will be from the upland. It will be trucked in. And I have a few slides on that coming up.
Okay, thanks.
So, quick question, are we dredging, Green Harbor's not gonna dredge this year then?
It is being dredged, but the Army Corps will not move the sand onshore.
Okay.
Going to an off-site.
Yeah, that material dredged at Green Harbor goes to a near-shore disposal site, sort of offshore the town line between Marshfield and Duxbury. Okay.
And we spent 3 years on the Army Corps on that issue. They basically told us that we could file to move their offshore location closer to the beach, but that's the best that they could do. So we are probably looking for a land site and trucking it in.
Sure, yeah.
How long are the permits good for? Because in other words, the Conservation Commission, probably 3 years, but extendable. How long will the cores be? In other words,
That would be a
are they all the
10-year.
same length, or they all going to be?
They're all different, unfortunately. The Corps is a 10-year permit. And Chapter 91 is 5 years. So we'd have to file again.
So what is CZM's policy? In other words, if they're different lengths, are the towns required to complete the project with the 10-year period or the permit that's the shortest length?
I think right now we would have probably up to 6 or 7 years to get, probably 6 years to get this done, 5 to 6 years to get the first nourishment done, before we have to refile.
You get extensions from the Conservation.
From the Conservation Commission, yeah, I think Chapter 91 would probably be the most limited one.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of sort of moving forward with some sort of project, as I said, both towns are interested in pursuing nourishment in the Bay Ave and Burnett Road area. The good news is there is grant funding available to help with construction. We do know that because of the size of the project and the amount of money that's available for grant funding, we're going to have to do this project in phases. We can't build all 480,000 cubic yards in 1 year. It's going to have to be done in multiple years. And again, that's because of the amount of grant or amount of funding available, and the fact that we've got a shortened sort of window in which we can construct the project because of time of year restrictions to protect shorebirds. But that's fine. We can phase the project. There's no problem with that. We know that Duxbury had an initial plan to seek some construction money at town meeting. I think maybe the final decision on that is being made tonight at the FinCom meeting, so that's sort of still up in the air. Even if they decide not to send anything to town meeting, or if they do and it gets shot down or not voted on, there is another way to do this project. And that's because both towns have funds that they've set aside for matching grant funds. And so we can tap into those funds, and it does not require a town meeting vote. Of course, it takes approval by the Board of Selectmen to tap into those funds, but, you know, I think at least in Marshfield, I think we have assurances that they'd be ready to do that, you know, and I think Duxbury is also, you know, more than likely willing to use some of their funds for this. But that's something we definitely have to check on. So we sort of played around with a scenario where if we file a grant application this June with Massachusetts Coastal Zone Management, and they have a cap of $1 million that they will provide the applicants. So Duxbury would file a grant application, Marshfield would file a grant application. So there's the possibility of getting $2 million. This is a possibility of getting $2 million from CZM. The towns have to provide a 25% match for that, and that would bring, you know, that money would come out of those matching grant funds that the towns already have. So if we follow a model like that, we assumed, or we calculated that we could get 15% of the project built in Duxbury and 54% of the project built in Marshfield. So that's percentages by volume. And we could do that this winter. We could do that in the winter of 2023, 2024. And then if we wanted to build the project out in future years, in Marshfield it would take another year, and in Duxbury it would take another 2 or 3 years to finish that entire project.
So that is an option, right? Because
That's an option.
we were looking at a total cost of 12 million for the 397 cubic yards
For Duxbury,
for
yeah.
Duxbury, right? And that would require us to borrow $4 million to start it, and then use the $1 million grant from CZM with our matching to finish the project off. But it's highly likely that big risk that we can't borrow that kind of money
Sure.
and get approval from the town and the residents. But so this is an option. We can do this way. Then that's feasible.
I mean,
is
this
it?
is an option we can use, this option here in the middle, assuming the one means half.
Right.
We could do that this winter.
Yeah.
You'd only get 15% by volume of the
Yeah.
project built in Duxbury. But if you did something like that for the next 3 years
Yes.
in Duxbury, you could, in essence, get the entire project built.
Okay. So basically the CCM grants are not limited, right? We can do it this way. We can do it in a staggered.
You can. It's not a given that you're going to get those grants.
Each
Right.
year, you may not.
It's a competitive project. but-
Competitive, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of tough to get grant one year and then you don't get it next to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we feel like, there is a path forward to put sand on the beaches this winter, and follow on funding in the ensuing years. In our opinion, the best case scenario is that, the nourishment starts this winter.
Because the beaches are starved.
Yes, because the
Right.
beaches are starved, and because any amount of sand you can get out there on the beach is going to help protect the seawalls. It will prevent the failing seawalls minimize further damage to those failing seawalls, minimize overtopping. When we put that material in, the footprint, if we start at the northern end in Marshfield, and Duxbury's is contiguous with that, the net transport, I think I have a slide on this next, but the net longshore transport, the way that the waves typically move the sediment along the beach, is to the south. So it's going to move that material that you will spend the money on towards the south into the permitted footprint. So yeah, so this is a slide of, just a scenario of what you could get built this winter, following that scenario I just gave you. So I'm going to talk you through this. The figure on the left is the yellow outline is the northern end of the footprint that we permitted. Okay? The yellow polygon, the sort of big, fat, chubby polygon, is what you could build under that scenario I just gave you, with Marshfield building 54% by volume and Duxbury 15% by volume. And you would follow the existing design that I showed you a minute ago, this one right here, where you have a 90-foot wide berm at elevation 11 and a near shore slope of 15:1. Okay, we could follow that, and we could fill out that yellow polygon there. Another thing we could do, and we would probably end up recommending this, honestly, is that we adjust that profile either by narrowing that flat berm to something shorter. I'm going to go back to this for a minute. So where we had a 90-foot berm here, maybe we narrow it to 50 feet. So you go out 50 feet from the seawall, and then you still go down at that 15:1. Okay? If we do that, we can go further, longer with the beach nourishment. So we can almost get to the northern end of the nourishment in Marshfield, and we can get considerably further down in Duxbury.
Which are the red dots?
That's the red dash line. Thank you. Yeah. So it's not quite as fast. The tow doesn't go as far offshore, but it goes longer down the beach. And so that's something that I think, if we proceed with this, and we are limited by those funds into that scenario that I showed you on the previous slide, we probably want to adjust the design a bit so that we could maximize the benefits that this design will provide. Yes?
How is 15% design volume greater than the 54% design volume? The 300 cubic yards versus 45?
That's 54% of the total
amount of
volume.
area
Yes,
you're covering.
yeah.
Deeper, no fill.
I'm not understanding, I guess I'm not
It's
understanding your question.
54%.
54% of
is
volume.
needed.
Doing
Of the total,
4,000
yeah.
from Foxbury.
Yeah, so the total volume for Duxbury or Marshfield's, what, 84,977.
Yeah.
Of that, you could put down 54%, which is 45,800 cubic yards.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
If you did the narrower berm, would you then, in another year or whatever, go back and widen that?
You could, but it would be more important, I think, to get the sand spread out along as much of the beach as you can. Because we know that there's a relationship between the length of beach nourishment and how long it lasts. The
Okay.
longer it is, the longer it lasts.
Would you ever go back then and widen the berm again?
You could absolutely do that. If the funds were there, you could absolutely do that. And I think that, yeah, that's definitely something you could do, and we would, recommend that if the funds were there.
So based on the scope of the project, how long will it last?
That's the question I was going to.
Yeah, so I have a slide on that, but I'll just go ahead and address it since you've asked it. So, we have engineering tools and analysis methods to evaluate that. For the big beach nourishment project, the whole 480,000, our models were telling us that within 5 years, 80% of the material is going to be moved somewhere else, sort of outside the footprint. Further to the south, maybe a little bit, further offshore. And at that point, that's when we would recommend some, re-nourishment. Now, those numbers change when we start shortening the fill. But that's what the numbers showed for the big beach nourishment project.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So is there a maintenance pathway to continue this down the road? And if so, is that a schedule thing, or is that based on where you stand at any given point during that period as far as it's hurricane, whatever hits us and then?
It's more the latter of what you said, but based on the models, where the models do assume some amount of storm activity. We were showing that, every 5 years, you would need to sort of come back in and maintain it with some, volume of sand. All right, so this is a schedule here. If you start over the left, we've got the issuance of the Army Corps permits sometime this spring. We do hope to work with the towns to submit grants to the coastal zone management. And that would happen sometime in June of 2023. And those grants would be for construction funding. Sometime during the summer and early fall, we would update the construction plans and prepare bid specifications for the contractors. We hope to select contractors in the fall or October of 2023 and be ready to start with phase 1 construction in November of 2023, possibly through March of 2024. And then in the out years, 2024 through 2026, we could, do the rest of the project, provided the funds were there. The next set of slides I have are just a bunch of Q&A. So I sort of anticipated questions you might have. I want to set the right expectations. I want the public to understand what would be built out there. So one of the questions, and we've addressed this a little bit, is what type of sediment will be used for the beach nourishment. So it has to be compatible with the existing beaches. So in these cases, it's a mixture of sand and gravel, and in some cases cobble. Cobble's about as big as your fist or bigger. And I meant to bring some samples, and I forgot. Yeah, I apologize.
And Leslie, I think what I found when I tell people that story, the thing that I think that resonates is the bigger stones mixed with the rougher type sand, not the powdery sand, like in the Caribbean or Florida. That has the greater chance of lasting through some of the storms and the wind episodes, northeasters, things like that.
Absolutely, yeah, you're absolutely right. As I said before, this upcoming winter, we would be planning to use sand from the upland. It's not dredge material, it's material that's going to be trucked down. And typically, that kind of material has a bit of iron staining. It's a little bit red when it comes to the beach. And there's an example of it up here in the upper left. This is a project that it's just being completed down at Duxbury Beach Reservation. You can see the red upland sand sort of in the left that's been placed there, as compared with the dune sand on the right, the native sand, and then the picture on the bottom is after that place has been sort of washed with a couple of high tides. So it really, you know, in short order, it looks very much like the natural beach sand and dune sand that's out there right now. What time of year will construction take place? Anywhere between September 1st and March 31st. That's what the permits require in order to protect endangered shorebird species. So we can't work beyond those dates. How will the sediment get to the beach? It's going to be trucked to the beach in tractor trailers. Some of you may have seen that as it was going to Duxbury Beach Reservation this season. It would be dumped in a stockpile, more than likely at the end of the Bay Ave ramp, and then relocated into something called an end dump, which is just a big vehicle that's equipped to drive along the beach, trucked down to the beach as far as, you know, we're placing it, and then spread using a front end loader. And there's, I don't know if you can see it very well, but some of that equipment is depicted in these pictures off to the left. How long will it take to construct the project? It's expected that, you know, it's gonna, as I said before, we're going to have to do it over a number of years. So anywhere from 2 to 4 years. And then it'll be ongoing for about 4 or 5 months between October and March in any year we're constructing. The volume of truck traffic. Oh, do you have a question?
Those models that you had that might have to be touched up again within 5 years or around 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time it gets done, the original parts that you started may
It's not going to be an ongoing thing just forever.
Yeah.
Once we get the original project done, we may want to come back in a couple of years and you know, based on data that we're collecting to see how that shows how the beach is performing, we may need to come back in and do some re-nourishment. Yeah. The volume of truck traffic that can be expected. So this is based on what we did at Duxbury Beach Reservation just recently. We brought in about 3,000 cubic yards a day. That's about 100 truckloads a day.
As
That's a lot of
Marshfield residents that live on Canal Street know only too
They
well.
see the truck,
Yeah.
yeah, we get the calls.
Yeah, that didn't, I mean, we were only working there for about 2 months, I believe. We got it done faster than we thought, so that was a good thing. But it's a lot of truck traffic, it certainly is. And people should expect that. This one, oh yeah, go ahead.
Is there ever a chance that we could actually reclaim the sand from the ocean and put it back out onto the beach?
That's a good question. That's something they do a lot in Florida and down in the Carolinas, Virginia. And there is, CCM did some work a while ago. They developed something called the Ocean Management Plan. And that plan designated some areas, I think 4 or 5 areas offshore Massachusetts that could be suitable for offshore borrow sites. So that's what you'd need in order to, like you said, reclaim it from, so you're pumping from a designated borrow site offshore and pumping it onto the beach. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done to investigate those 4 or 5 sites that they identified in the Ocean Management Plan. I would love to see that happen. I think it's probably 5 or 6 years down the road from now, but it's not out of the question that, you know, we start looking at that.
But we also see that within the first half mile of the beach shoreline.
I see what you're saying.
You see the shallows that
Yeah.
are occurring and so forth that have been, because you can actually just watch the waves just pop up out of the water as they come
Yeah.
across that. And it's, it seems like it's so much better sand to put back up onto the beach than trucking in some sand from Colorado.
Yeah.
So
So
we would
wouldn't-
love to get the Army Corps material onshore.
Yeah. But we wouldn't actually recommend dredging that material that you're talking about because it really provides a huge benefit out there. So it helps to break the waves, and even though it's further offshore, It helps to protect the beaches and the properties that are, behind it. And it also, in the summer, that material sort of migrates onshore, and in the winter, it migrates offshore and you form those bars that you're talking about. So it's really best to leave that material there to act naturally and provide a beneficial function.
That's an excellent presentation on all viewpoints. From an engineering and a project management viewpoint, from the information on the Duxbury website, it says that your transects and your contours are 3 years old. They were done in 2020. And the prices, I assume, per cubic yard are 3 years old, prior to COVID, prior to inflation and everything else. Looking at what we have here, would you have to recontour the beach to come up with 2023 volumes to update the plans and specifications, then obviously adjust the price per cubic yard? As a follow-on to that, much of Duxbury and Marshfield in this area is already armored. Do your prices include removing the stone, nourishing the beach, and then maybe replacing the stone? In other words, from Duxbury's viewpoint, how are we to estimate the construction costs for our portion of the project, looking at all the plans and specifications updated for 2023, and then going out to bid either for lump sum contract or a certain minimum quantity with, obviously, extras?
Okay, that's a really good question. I'm going to take the second part first. So as far as updating the costs, the costs we gave you before were pre-COVID. Things have gone up. The analysis that I did, assuming $1 million for each town from CZM, plus the 25% match from the towns, and I came up with an estimate of a volume that would give you 15% and 54%. That's based on current rates that we received for the DPR project. So we did update those rates in order to come up with these percentages here. So it's not to say that, when we put this out to bid this coming winter, if we do, there's going to be some variation. But, we think we used a pretty fair cost per cubic yard for these estimates here. In terms of updating our data, yeah, we got to go back out before we do the construction and update the survey and update the volumes. I will say that we did that for the Duxbury Beach Reservation project, which was based on, its original design was based on some 2019 profile data. We updated it this October, and the volumes were within 2,000 yards of each other. So it's not, I don't anticipate it being a big change. That said, once we get the new survey and we update the volumes, and we know what sort of design template we want to build, we're going to maximize that, as I said on this slide here, to get the best benefit out of this project we can, based on the amount of sand we have and the money we have to build it. So, because we're using data from 2020, I don't see that as a problem at all. We know we have to go out there and do a survey before we do construction.
How do you address the question, and for those of us on the Seawall Committee in Duxbury, and going, important article Saturday afternoon at town meeting at the ballot box 2 weeks later to replace the seawall in the same area? In other words, from a construction viewpoint, obviously, the chicken and the egg, you don't want to do things twice, obviously, but this section of Bay Ave and the beginning of Gurney Road in Duxbury has one of the worst conditions of the seawall that is 70 years old right now.
Yeah.
And obviously, one of the questions that we all face is, who do you want to go first?
Yeah.
And you know the history as well.
Sure. So, what we would recommend is that if you have an opportunity, if you can get a grant for, worth $2 million of money from a grant to do the project, or a portion of the project, this winter, we would recommend you do that because it provides protection for those properties that are behind the nourishment. It minimizes damages to those already damaged seawalls. If in 3 or 4 years, the seawall committee gets the permits to refurbish those seawalls, you can easily excavate some of that material right in front of the seawalls and rebuild them. And in fact, I would argue that by having sand out there in the nourishment footprint, you've got a better platform, so to speak, for the contractors to work on the seawall later on. because they're not having to take their equipment off the beach each day to get, out of the tide. So I would argue that, you can certainly do it either way, but if you've got an opportunity to put sand on these beaches, do it. And later on, you can, when you get the money for the seawalls and you've got the permits, you can do that too.
Are we going to have some sort of intermunicipal agreement to move this ahead? Are we going to apply for this jointly? How are we going to do it?
We're filing separately with CZM.
Are we?
But there will be access, Town of Marshfield will have to work with Duxbury on the access because for this project, it will be going in Bay Ave.
I'll talk to our town council. I'm sure he'll work with Duxbury's town council and come up with an agreement to get off and on the beach, because we'll be using Marshfield's access for Duxbury's truckloads of sand.
But I thought there was an advantage.
So,
If we would apply jointly?
You're talking about to get a contractor.
No, I'm talking about this whole project, right?
Yeah.
So we're planning for winter 2023. The objective is to go ahead and work joint on this, and one of it is to get the funding from CZM.
The funding has to be separate to maximize our funding opportunity.
Okay.
1 million each for each town, filed separately. So construction and access, we would be working together.
Okay.
And I think
We also have to, in the long run, work on getting us to the full renourishment.
Sure.
So that's later.
But there is a lot of benefit in towns working together to release an RFP for the contractors and to hire a contractor.
Right.
That's where you're going to get an economy of savings, because it's only going to be one MOB, demob charge for that contractor.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so we can talk afterwards on that piece then. All right.
Okay. Where was I? This one here, we talked a little bit about renourishment. Our engineering analyses suggest that renourishment we needed about every 5 years. I'm going to say that if we can get material on here in the first 3 or 4 years, that renourishment interval is going to increase. It's going to lengthen, because as we get more and more material on here, you're not going to need as much in the out years. And the engineering models will show that. I have a slide of that where we were assuming we were going to get 30,000 yards a year from Green Harbor. That's back when we thought we could. And it really starts to lengthen out that renourishment interval. So, I think if we can build this in phases, I think this renourishment interval is going to get to be longer than 5 years. And again, if we're placing that material up near the Duxbury-Marshfield town line, that direction of longshore transport is to the south, so a lot of it is going to migrate down to the south into that footprint. And then will there be impacts to water quality? When we're bringing in fine grained material from the upland, there are fines in that material, and as it sort of washes out and gets inundated by the waves, some of that material does go out into the nearshore area, and there can be a bit of a plume like you see here on the left. It's a cloudy plume. It's going to appear in the near shore, but after the fines are washed away, it will disappear and you won't see it anymore. But we definitely try to, I will say, when we're sourcing the material, we're trying to identify sources that really minimize the fines that are in there that could cause this. I think that's it. Yeah. So we can take questions from the room, I think, and then you want to sort of deal with the chat group? Okay, I'll take a question back here.
It's great that something's happening here, but what about Ocean Bluff?
Sunrise Beach and Frankston.
Ocean Bluff to the south, Sunrise Fields, yeah.
So what are the next steps there, I guess?
Yeah, so Ocean Bluff was an area that we determined was not really feasible for beach nourishment. The reason is that I guess in order to build a beach wide enough, we would have to be nourishing that beach almost annually in order to provide any sort of benefits and to get it to stay there. It's very energetic, it's very rocky, and it's an area where our model showed that the lifetime analysis showed that it just wasn't feasible to nourish that area.
All right, I guess the question I have here, we'll tie in with what we're talking about Ocean Bluff, but Does any of the beaches that you plan on nourishing have any stone armoring? And if they do, are they gonna be removed?
We don't plan to remove any of the stone armoring. It's
So you're just gonna sand over this?
yes, yes.
What is the purpose? What would be the purpose of that?
We're just going to leave that stone there. If the sand, lowers, that riprap does provide some value for the base of those seawalls. And so we don't want to remove it. We're going to leave it there.
I'm just looking at all that stone armoring, especially in the Ocean Bluff area, and as well as the other areas you're gonna sand. Those could provide, there's many of the questions that were asked there in regards to keeping the sand on the beach, and you've already said that you may have to revisit in 5 years, could be even less than that. You couldn't use that stone armoring, which we have plenty of in Marshfield, I can't speak to Duxbury, but as some kind of base to hold that sand in place out in the water, far out low.
Like a breakwater or something like
Yep.
that, or yeah. I mean, we looked at that as well. It's not something that it would be, you'd need a lot of material out there because it's very deep, and you need a lot of material, stone, in order to build something that would provide enough protection.
Between what I see on the walls and then the dilapidated jetties, I mean, there's plenty in Marshfield that doesn't have to go too far to make that happen.
Yeah. I can refer you to that first study that we did where we really did a really good analysis of all the different alternatives that we could use to protect the different areas of Marshfield. We looked at the offshore breakwater and we did a cost analysis, and it's all in there. I'm not remembering exactly all the details, but I can certainly point you to that if you want me to.
Did you do modeling on it?
We didn't do any modeling on the breakwater, no.
That would be beneficial if you could do that. You talk about shorebird habitat. So are you just protecting space that is already there, or are you planning on creating more space for shorebird habitat?
Well, as we build the beach out, it will be a better habitat for the shorebirds. Right now, I don't believe there's any birds nesting in the Bay Ave or northern Underground road area.
That we know of.
If we build the beach, there may be some birds that will come there, and they'll have to be protected.
Is there a particular spot? I know Duxbury has an issue on the beach. I don't know if it's every season or whatever, in regards to that they close the beach at a certain point to protect the birds. I mean, do they just pick any spot in the beach and hang out there for a little while, or are they in the dunes, or what are they?
They're not in the dunes. They like very sort of, very gently sloping areas. I don't know that many birds nest on beaches in front of seawalls. I'm not going to discount it, but I think it's more in sort of the natural areas, which is one reason why they're more concentrated down the DVR property than they are up to the north. But that's a good point. I mean, and that's one of the things that we have in the permits is that once we build these beaches, the towns are going to have to monitor the beaches for birds, and if the birds come, they're going to have to be protected. So that's I should have put that as a Q&A. That's something that the residents need to understand.
Instead of the sand, so we already established the sand is not going to come from the ocean. It's going to be a sandy mixed with gravel and cobble. I think you mentioned it, but I think I missed it in regards to the cobble. How big of a size of cobble are we talking about?
I mean, cobble is like the size of your fist. That's sort of a small sized piece of cobble. And that's probably, roughly about as big as it would be.
And has that been used in other beaches?
Yes, yeah, I mean, there was some cobble in the Duxbury Beach Reservation material we brought in.
All right, so that's kind of open area, there's no homes there on that. My concern would be if you're using something like a cobble, especially at that size, the water's gonna pick it up. It could literally be carried by the water and launched to somebody's home, whatever.
But that's what's there now.
That's what's there now?
Yeah.
All right, I'm glad you. The sand height, I'm trying to figure out in regards to when you replenish the beaches, and I know it's going to be in phases, but how high is the sand going to be to the seawall? Like, is it going to elevate higher than what it is right now in regards to where the sand is now to the seawall, or is it going to be elevated even more where, I mean, you'll be closer to the top of the seawall?
On that cross section I showed you there, the top of the berm, the top of that flat beach was about 5 feet below the crest of the seawall. It'll be closer to the crest of the seawall as you go further to the south, because that seawall is lower in elevation.
Okay, so there's going to be some height
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
sand.
and that's what provides the benefit from overtopping, frankly.
In regards to truck travel, so it's my understanding that in order to get Duxbury to get replenished, they're gonna have to use Marshfield roads?
Yes.
For the northern part of Duxbury.
Correct. I mean, Marshfield spent a chunk of money a couple of years ago rebuilding a bridge that benefited Duxbury massively.
Both Bay Ave and Beach, or Canal Street
Canal Street.
and Beach Street bridges were rebuilt.
But Canal Street was the big one for them to get their, the beaches on
What we
the
call
Duxbury.
Rainbow Bridge.
Thank you, Mr. Guimond. And Marshfield picked up the tab for that, which was a major benefit for Duxbury.
It was actually Mass Highway, a lot of Mass Highway money.
Marshfield picked up a good amount of that tab compared to what Duxbury kicked in.
Yeah, but Duxbury spent a lot of its own money on that bridge to help.
Duxbury didn't spend anywhere near what Marshfield spent on it.
Just to clarify that for the Duxbury folks, Duxbury taxpayers did contribute $75,000. I work with Rainey Reed, your town administrator, and Rainey contributed $75,000 of Chapter 90 funds towards that bridge because it also benefits Duxbury residents.
I don't believe Duxbury I believe Duxbury should have paid a whole lot more for that benefit. So the whole thing is that Duxbury is not going to be using Marshfield roads to benefit their beach through Bay Ave. So the whole thing is, Mr. Guimond, you said you were looking at to get an agreement. I think there should be some kind of monetary price put on it in regards to the use of our roads and like that, considering we picked up a giant tab for that bridge for the beaches to be done over, and now they're going to be using our roads, which may eventually need to be done over with all the truck traffic being traveled in the Bay Ave area. There was reserve funding. I can't speak to Duxbury, but in regards to Marshfield, where is this reserve funding going for this, or coming from?
These were, I believe, at least in the town of Duxbury, there's a town meeting article, has been for the last 2 years, and there will be one this year, to set aside $250,000 in a fund to be used for grant matching activities, whatever they are.
That's Duxbury, so I'm asking both.
Marshfield has a similar sort of thing.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I forget, we have the money, the original money that's there now.
Yes.
375?
Last spring's town
I
meeting?
think it was last spring or the fall.
I got the value here, just a minute.
One of the questions on the Zoom chat was, can we have links to the Zoom?
375.
We will post on the Marshfield website. Duxbury can also use the post. We have Marshfield Cable TV here. I would recommend you use the Marshfield Cable TV link that we will put up because we had so many problems with the Zoom meeting.
So,
You can put the slides up too, right?
yeah, we can put the presentation up too as well.
Yeah, it'll be linked on the Marshfield one, and I'm sure Chris will get it on the Duxbury.
Absolutely.
So Marshfield has $375,000 and that's been approved by town meeting that they can borrow in June or July.
So it's money that was approved last year?
Yes.
And what was that money
For
from?
beach nourishment.
For beach nourishment, so you have
Yes.
money left over that's going?
So we have money, we've started building a chest towards expecting, hopefully this coming winter or the following winter, that we were gonna start actually getting to the beach nourishment program.
And then, how much, look at the beaches now, how much more is gonna be added on, width-wise, I guess, in expanding it?
Quite a bit. I would say you're gonna push, so being on water, you're probably gonna push that further seaward by at least 100 feet, maybe 120 feet,
100 feet, 120 feet?
further seaward.
And do you think, at that distance, that will, well, actually, you're gonna increase the height, and then you get the distance, so, how much weight actually, when this is completed, would you anticipate coming up towards the seawalls? Nothing,
Well,
or?
it depends on what kind of storm we have, right? I mean, if you got a 100-year storm, there's gonna be waves on the seawall and
All right,
it's
so
gonna be rough.
let's not base it on 100-year storm,
Okay.
but let's base it on a typical maybe nor'easter.
I mean, what our modeling show with like a 10 or a 15-year storm is that the wave overtopping is 100% reduced.
All right, in regards to modeling, do you have this online, or does the town have it online? I mean, I'd like to see the modeling and how you get it all depicted and all that.
It's it's all in the results. I mean, not the models themselves, but the results and the, the assumptions we made and the input, criteria. That's all in the documentation we've given the towns, and it's on the town's website.
But no computer modeling is placed up. Would I be correct about
No,
that?
no, we don't have our models up there for you to run. No.
But that's how you, when you're talking modeling, is it computer modeling?
Yeah.
All right. You don't,
We're not going to distribute the models to the public, no.
why not?
Because I don't think the public would know how to run them.
Right.
You want a video of it, just showing everything?
We show you the results of the models. We definitely have all the graphics and everything like that, but we're not going to give you our computer models.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, question.
On the bidding process, how many bidders do you anticipate bidding on this project? And what's been your experience in the past?
For the Duxbury Beach Reservation project, we had 3 bidders. And, I think we would want to see at least 3. So we can get competitive bids and, do some comparisons.
There's no public bidding process that you go through. This is a process that you've established, or is it?
No, it would be a public bid. Yeah, it would be public.
Okay, that's what I asked.
Yeah, it would be.
So hopefully you'll have at least 3 people bidding.
Yes.
Project.
Yes.
When it's all complete and, your modeling is based on 10, 15, 20-year storms, if there's a catastrophic storm and it ends up being a federal declaration, will these beaches be constructed to the criteria that during that federal disaster that they would participate in replacing them again?
That's an excellent, excellent question. So there is a program that FEMA has where if you have a beach nourishment project that's, has an engineering design for it and a design life, and the towns monitor those beaches. So they have to survey them annually and specifically after storms. If you can show all that, then FEMA will provide some funding to restore the beaches. We had a discussion in a meeting, we just had a team meeting not long ago, that if we build the shorter projects in phases where we're not building the entire thing, does that somehow sort of make that process null and void? So that's something I need to check into to see if it's, what FEMA would say in a situation like that. And I don't know the answer to it yet.
Well, it's good to keep in mind what you were saying, that if there are things you have to do before a catastrophic event, that the towns do something along those lines so they remain eligible. If
Absolutely. Yeah, we would definitely recommend that. That's a great question.
You had mentioned something about the seawall in Duxbury and the beach nourishment, and that it's more important, I just want to make sure I understood you. Is it more important to get the beach nourishment down first, and then start with the redoing of the seawall?
All I'm saying is that if the towns have an opportunity this winter to get $1 million or $2 million worth of grant funding for beach nourishment sand, they should do it. Regardless of what they do with the seawalls.
Yeah.
And I would say that in any year. If you've got the ability and those grant funds available to do it, then you should put the sand down.
You still have a ways to go in permitting on the seawalls, so
Yes.
that's a ways out.
Right.
Yeah.
This has been a topic of discussion.
Yeah, the benefit is if you have more sand on the beach, you have more storm damage protection.
Yep.
So if you put some there before a storm, we never know when we're going to get the storms.
Yeah.
So the more protection, the better.
Yeah, realistically, Cindy, it might not happen this year. We might have to have 2 or 3 tries before the town.
Yeah.
It's just like the DPW plan, right? It took us 2 or 3 times. With third time lucky, we got it approved, right? Let's just suspect maybe the same thing will happen here. So it looks like sand every year.
Well, even if the well has sand,
Yeah.
you have a ways to go in permitting.
Yeah, on top of that. Yep, years.
They're gonna need one.
Yep.
I mean, at least a year, maybe a year and a half. And, the thing is, we need to be sharing our plan, the updated plan that Pat did right now, so that we can start getting feedback, so that when we are ready to actually make our application, they've already had a couple of chances to iterate and give us some comments, so that we don't have something that has to be significantly redesigned based on that feedback.
Yeah, since you're almost to the end on you're ready to get permits for Nourishment, you're ready to go sooner. The seawalls still have to go through that drawing process, and it's not there.
Right. We had a question from chat.
Yeah, so the question was, what's the confidence in the modeling? And I don't exactly know how to answer that, except for that these are standard engineering models that we use routinely. I don't know if there's a confidence interval that is built into them. I can certainly look into that and try to answer that question, but they are tools that we use on all of our beach nourishment projects. The next question was, will you be monitoring the project to see how well it sort of matches up to the predictions? And yes, we do that. We've done that with all the beach nourishment projects we have done in CZM, and in fact has kept a database of all that information, and also tracks the performance of the beach nourishment projects and how well they stacked up to the models.
Is there any comparable already completed projects based on the engineering that this project would hold, that you could go and sort of cross-check the modeling, or is this fairly, is everything basically unique to the geography?
No, I mean, we do collect data after we put in different beach nourishment projects, and so we do compare it with the model results. And there's good agreement for the most part. And there are comparable projects. We've got the project down at Duxbury Beach. We're going to be modeling that one, monitoring that one. We've had projects back, probably 5 or 10 years ago down the south side of the Cape that we implemented, that we monitored. Those all fell within sort of the range of acceptability within the, based on the model results. So
any that have been adjacent to seawalls?
The Long Beach project in Centerville was in front of a seawall, lower seawall. I don't know if Rebecca can think of any in front of the seawall.
There was a mixed sediment nourishment project similar implemented in Winthrop that was in front of a seawall that had no dry beach at high tide, and they recreated one. Now they don't have overtopping there.
That sounds very similar.
Very well.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's plenty of examples of this kind of work, and it's following the same process that Woods Hole Group has done of characterizing it, making sure the grain size is the right match for the beach, and the same criteria, looking at berm height, that gives you the protection, all of the same process. So that's why we have confidence in this moving forward.
Thank you.
Great.
Either one of you.
Okay. So in Duxbury, we have that break in the seawall.
Yeah.
And we've got a beach nourishment project that's going to end up coming in connection with a dune nourishment project there. Is this all intertwined to make that work out correctly?
It is, yeah. So we have, the plan that we have shows how that dune nourishment in the area that I call the horseshoe area, I don't know if that's what you call it locally. So that dune nourishment then blends in with this beach nourishment template that I just showed you on the screen. So, the toe of the dune sort of matches the crest of that flat berm that I showed you, and then it just goes on out like the other beaches.
Right, because without doing that part, if the seawall goes and starts stopping water, then you can't have it keep coming into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leslie, did the modeling consider both the old wall in Duxbury and the new section we built 2.5 years ago that's 4.5 feet higher? In other words, what were the results if you did the modeling as far as overtopping protection, now that our wall is at 24.5 feet middle of water, or 19 feet NABD 88. So when you look at how much of a benefit to overtopping and protection does the new wall provide, that obviously the sooner we get the wall replaced, especially in Bay Ave, the better off we're going to be, because that's where we had a lot of flooding back on December 23rd when everything got flooded in that side of town.
Yeah, for sure. We did use the new elevations of the wall in the areas where it had been increased. I don't remember what level of protection it showed that wall provided, but I can certainly look it up and, you know, get back to you on that.
Because people ask the question, you'll be 4.5 feet, 4 to 4 feet higher, you know, you should get more protection. You will get more protection.
You will get more,
But-
you will under certain storms, but honestly, if you have a bigger storm and you've got a beach out in front, you're gonna get a lot more protection for those properties than you would, you know, without the beach. So, yeah, so to me, it just makes sense to, you know, like I said, if you've got the money, get the money, grant money, you should use it to put sand down. Yes, please.
So, we talked about the 90 feet coming out, and then you explained that if we shorten that based on the funding available, maybe that would be another alternative, and I'm
Yeah.
sure there's contingencies that come into play by going from the 90 down to the 50, or whatever it is that is the most beneficial for all the players involved.
Yeah.
So the cost is driving that 90 to 50, and correct me if I'm wrong, how does that come into play in the funding and your contingencies as you work through this project?
So it does, the cost does, the amount of money you have available does drive, you know, what we can put on the beach, obviously. We're gonna use, if we go forward with the project, we're gonna figure out how much money is available, and we're gonna optimize that design. Maybe it's narrower, you know, but we're gonna optimize it to provide the best benefit we can for, you know, the longest section of beach.
But it seems like that option 3, I think you said, the 90, seemed to be a doable distance based on what you see as the money and funds available.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Does the design call for planting of any grass?
It does not in this area, it does not, no. In the dune area it did. I'm sorry, in the horseshoe area it does.
Chris, we have a taxpayer question.
But nowhere else.
Is it not recommended because if given its limited exposure?
Yeah, partly that, and you know, the natural heritage people who are concerned with protection of the endangered shorebirds don't really like to see beach grass because it inhibits the nesting and foraging. Can you see that?
I can't see the whole message, no.
So use this, yeah, it's hard to do with you. Use the, got it?
Duxbury set aside the money for matching funds specifically for seawall replacement. They also have grant applications in for seawall grants, which is what we talked about earlier today. So the funds, and I can't, for some
Here,
reason.
use this thing, Chris. Will that get you down? Greg, can you operate this?
Yeah, let me see. Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
do it with my left hand.
You gotta go over to the right. Far right there. There you go.
So the funds you're talking about using for the nourishment grant match may not be available.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it, who's asking the question?
Jeff Deedy.
Jeff Deedy. All right.
He lives on the beach.
Yeah. I think I talked to him. He attended the meeting last time. We'll figure it out, but by the sounds of it, we have the opportunity to do beach nourishment this year, this winter season, and we've got, my understanding is that we have enough grants available to, enough matching grants to start. It will benefit, I've just heard from CZM that we haven't even fully started permitting the beach, the replacement of seawall is going to take many years. If we put sand down, what I'm hearing right now is going to protect the existing seawall. All right, and as we know, let me just finish. This is what I heard. It will protect the existing seawall, which everybody says is in bad shape, right? So why don't we go ahead and put sand to protect the existing seawall? What's wrong with that?
Chris gave the selectmen a presentation back in the fall, saying we needed a year to finish the permitting for the seawall. If we had started the wall permitting 6 months ago, we'd be 6 months into that 15-month period.
So what's your point?
It's not going to take years, Fernando. It's going to take months.
Wait, excuse me.
Please.
I think we're getting beyond
Our
our,
planning director, our consultant.
this is an internecine issue.
This is Marshfield. All right, we have another question from chat. This is for the Marshfield side. How did the modeling drive the decision to establish the northern boundary of the project? I thought it was going to be much further north on Bay Ave.
Okay, good question. We did have a couple of alternatives that went further north than the alternative 3 in the Bay Ave area. We shortened them and chose the alternative 3 partially to protect some Rocky and Tidal Shore resources that are up there a little bit further to the north. So those are valuable resources that provide benefits for all sorts of marine life, and the regulators asked that we protect them, so we shortened it primarily for that reason.
That's it on the chat for the moment.
All right. And just to let you know that if you have any questions that hit you while you're driving home, please feel free to email either Greg, myself, and we'll get questions to Leslie and to CZM if that's their domain of the answer. My cards are on the table over there. Please feel free to pick one up. And I believe the presentation also has our contact information in there as well. So this doesn't end your ability to get further information on this project. So just let us know if anything hits you.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank
much
you very
for
much.
showing up and asking all those good questions.
Thank you.